Major Anthony Coleman sits bleeding in his car, 3 bullet wounds in his chest. The dashboard camera recording every agonized moment. Police officer Benjamin Clark stands outside, gun still raised, shouting, "I told you not to move." Anthony's vision blurs with pain and confusion as he reaches slowly toward his military ID on the passenger seat. His phone buzzes with a text from the Pentagon. An urgent classified mission awaits. Before the world slips away, he wonders what truly sparked this traffic stop. The scene erupts into chaos. Officer Clark keys his radio, shots fired, suspect down. Sirens pierce the night as paramedics race to stabilize Anthony. At County General Hospital, surgeons fight to patch shattered ribs and staunch arterial bleeding. Missed his heart by millimeters, the lead surgeon whispers. He shouldn't be alive. In the waiting room, police officers huddle in tight clusters. Scripting the narrative, self-defense, officer feared for his life, suspect made aggressive movements. Sophia Coleman bursts through the emergency doors. A 39-year-old civil rights attorney with a reputation for tenacity, she demands to see her husband. Uniformed officers block her path. He's under investigation, no visitors allowed. Sophia invokes next of kin rights and threatens civil rights lawsuits. Reluctantly, they step aside. Channel 8's ticker already names Anthony the suspect, erasing his rank and sacrifice. At 2 a.m., Police Chief Richard Brooks holds an emergency press conference beside a display of Officer Clark, a stellar personnel file. He asserts Clark acted according to protocol against a threatening individual. Meanwhile, social media explodes. Blue Lives Matter supporters post photos of Clark's academy graduation, while others condemn the profiling of a Black Army lieutenant colonel in a luxury BM. Colonel Thomas Parker, Anthony's commanding officer and the Pentagon's liaison to intelligence agencies, storms into the hospital demanding the dashcam footage. Equipment malfunction, the desk sergeant claims. Parker's jaw tightens. He dispatches his own investigative team. Back in IQ, Sophia grips Anthony's hand as machines breathe for him. 3 trauma surgeons working around the clock to save his life. 3 days later, Anthony remains critical, tubes and monitors sustaining him like a technological cocoon. Officer Clark sits on paid administrative leave. Joking within the department is paid vacation. Police union attorneys hold daily briefings rebranding Clark as a traumatized hero forced to use deadly force. District Attorney Howard Jennings visits Sophia with sympathetic words but deflects every question about charges. "We need to follow procedure, these cases are complex," he says. Sophia's response is icy. "My husband had rights to the right not to be shot 3 times. Evidence begins to vanish. The preliminary police report is pending supervisory review. Witnesses recant or disappear. A key bystander who filmed part of the encounter is summoned by detectives under the pretext of national security and has her phone confiscated. Sophia's home is vandalized with racist slurs, responding officers treat it as juvenile mischief. Pentagon officials report unauthorized attempts to access Anthony's classified files. 1 week after the shooting, a subtle but decisive turn has taken place in the EQ. The cardiac monitors, once desperately fluctuating, now display a steady rhythm. Anthony's blood pressure has risen into safe ranges, and his oxygen saturation holds firm without dramatic intervention. In light of these improvements, the trauma team officially reclassifies his condition from critical to serious but stable, although he remains heavily sedated and unconscious. The edge of mortality has receded just enough to offer a cautious breath of relief. Throughout these tense days, Sophia refuses every offer of a private room or warm meal in the hospital's guest suite. Instead, she makes her vigil beside his bed, sleeping fitfully in a reclining chair under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. She pores over each new lab report, liver enzymes, coagulation panels, arterial blood gases matching them against her meticulously kept timeline of events. Every drip of IV fluid and every blip of the ventilator is a reminder of how fragile Anthony's recovery remains. Behind the scenes, military and federal leaders spring into action. Rear Admiral Lancaster of the Joint Cybersecurity Command quietly initiates an encrypted video conference with the FBI director. His tone is grave. This was not a stray traffic stop or a momentary lapse. Lieutenant Colonel Coleman was spearheading a classified investigation into domestic threats targeting our power grids, water systems, and communications infrastructure. He briefs on preliminary signals intelligence indicating that extremist actors may have orchestrated the ambush. Within hours of that clandestine call, FBI tactical teams mobilize and converge on the hospital. Working in concert with Marine sentries already assigned to secure high-value personnel, they transform Anthony's floor into a protected zone. Access points are established at each corridor entrance, complete with badge scanners and credential checks. Unmarked SUVs form a discreet perimeter outside the emergency entrance, and electronic countermeasure specialists install signal jammers to guard against unauthorized recordings. A joint liaison desk is set up near the nurses' station, where Pentagon cyber analysts, FBI investigators, and military police share intelligence in real time. As dawn breaks on the 8th day, Sophia stirs to find plainclothes agents offering her support and periodic updates. Their presence, both reassuring and formidable, underscores a stark truth. What began as a tragic roadside shooting has escalated into a matter of national security. And now the full weight of federal and military authority is squarely behind the effort to uncover the conspiracy that nearly cost Anthony his life. Local politicians and the police union push back, lobbying congressional representatives and filing motions to keep jurisdiction local. The battle for investigative control begins. City Hall buzzes with arguments over overreach and federal intrusion, while pundits on cable news rails about protecting the thin blue line. 2 weeks after the shooting, Anthony opens his eyes. Sophia's relieved gasp echoes through the hushed IQ. He rasps what happened. Despite severe pain and a ventilator tube, he recounts the officer's hostility when he saw Anthony's military ID, the abrupt photo Clark took of that ID, and the furtive phone call he heard. That revelation, premeditation rather than panic, shifts Sophia into overdrive. A whistleblower emerges. A junior IT specialist at the Fairfield County Police Department anonymously delivers the original dashcam footage to Sophia and her legal team. The video demolishes the official storyline. Anthony complies fully. Clark draws first and photographs Anthony's credentials, and a second officer is visible just out of Clark's frame. With trepidation, Sophia and Colonel Parker confer. Releasing the footage could expose a cover-up and endanger their source, yet withholding it risks losing justice. Attorney General Melissa Chen announces federal civil rights and domestic terrorism investigations. We believe Lieutenant Colonel Coleman was targeted for his work, not just his race, she states. Overnight, heavy media outlets pivot. CNN interviews 3 of Anthony's former Afghan subordinates, white officers, who attest to his leadership and courage under fire. Public sentiment shifts as revelations surface of a broader conspiracy. In a dramatic move, DOJ files charges against Officer Benjamin Clark, attempted murder, civil rights violations, unauthorized possession of classified documents, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Within hours, Clark vanishes, alerted by sympathizers within law enforcement. A nationwide manhunt ensues. Captain Howard Reynolds, Fairfield PD's liaison to the Union, decries the indictment as political persecution. Simultaneously, Sophia receives encrypted messages from a former client, a whistleblowing officer detailing Reynolds' recruitment of extremist-aligned cops, including Clark, whose brother works for Sentinel Defense Systems, a contractor with access to the very infrastructure Anthony's team was safeguarding. FBI raids unfold across 3 states. Agents seize encrypted communications, stolen Pentagon files on power grid vulnerabilities, and financial records, signaling at payoffs to law enforcement insiders. Clark is apprehended near the Canadian border, his car loaded with false IDs and classified documents. In his abandoned townhouse, agents discover evidence of extremist contacts. Reynolds attempts to destroy case files in the Fairfield PD's records room. At 2 a.m., security cameras catch him. The FBI executes a warrant on his office, unearthing offshore wire transfers tied to foreign entities. The net tightens. Public reaction polarizes further. Conservative pundits denounce federal witch hunts. Liberal commentators emphasize the national security threat posed by domestic extremists in uniform. Veterans rally outside Walter Reed in protective solidarity. Police union supporters protest in equal measure, barricades separating the factions. 3 months post-shooting, the criminal trial begins in Alexandria, Virginia. Media throngs clutch microphones and cameras, competing for sound bites. Defense attorney Thomas Harrington frames Clark as a dutiful officer under stress. Prosecutor Rebecca Jensen presents the dashcam footage, forensic ballistics, and phone records showing Clark's calls to extremist numbers immediately before and after the shooting. Sophia testifies as fact witness, detailing evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and institutional obstruction. Harrington's attempts to paint her as an opportunist backfire when she calmly states, "I've spent 20 years securing justice for civil rights victims, only when proof was beyond doubt. My husband nearly died. This isn't a career opportunity, it's every black family's worst nightmare." Clark's own testimony collapses under cross-examination. Jensen highlights contradictions between his initial reports and the video. She plays the audio of Clark photographing Anthony's Pentagon Idaho and saying, "Interesting timing." Jurors watch Clark's face pale. Yet, after 7 days of testimony, the jury deadlocks. Judge Thomas Montgomery declares a mistrial, unable to reach unanimous verdict, despite overwhelming evidence. Outside, supporters of both sides shout triumph and outrage. Attorney General Chen immediately appeals for a retrial. Simultaneously, evidence emerges of jury tampering. One juror admits being threatened via anonymous calls, another received cash bribes. Federal prosecutors launch an investigation into possible criminal jury interference. Confronted with a stalled civilian process and escalating threats, Pentagon and Deutsch convene a high-level Security Council. Director of National Intelligence and the Defense Secretary brief the president. "We face a coordinated domestic terrorism conspiracy exploiting racial divisions and law enforcement channels to undermine security." Within 24 hours, the president approves invoking military jurisdiction under Article 106 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, ordinarily reserved for wartime offenses. Benjamin Clark, Captain Reynolds, and 14 co-conspirators are transferred to Fort Belvoir for a closed-door military tribunal on treason, attempted murder of a military officer, and conspiracy against the United States. The Supreme Court fast-tracks review of the tribunal's legality. On a 5-4 ruling, it upholds military jurisdiction, setting the domestic terrorism and foreign influence dimensions. Legal challenges from civil liberties groups intensify, but operations proceed. In the classified tribunal, proceedings unfold with military precision. Clark and his fellow officers face a panel of senior judge advocates. Prosecution presents the dashcam video, phone logs, forensic analyses, whistleblower testimony, and communications between conspirators and foreign extremist operatives. Captain Reynolds admits recruiting Clark and coordinating obstructive actions to shield the plot. The tribunal's most dramatic moment comes when GI-style interrogation yields Reynolds' confession that foreign agents provided ideological indoctrination, financial incentives, and strategic directives to exploit racial animus in law enforcement. He testifies to meetings with known white nationalist operatives and Russian intelligence contacts. Militarized security sweeps thwart an attempted base breach by extremist sympathizers during the trial. Intelligence intercepts reveal coordination across 17 police departments, strategic placements near power plants, water facilities, and communication hubs. After 2 weeks of presentation, the tribunal convicts Clark and 5 senior conspirators of treason and attempted assassination capital offenses. Captain Reynolds and 8 others receive life sentences. Sentencing is swift. Clark and the ringleaders face execution by lethal injection under military protocol. Others remain incarcerated in military brigs. Executions occur without public spectacle at Fort Leavenworth. Military justice closes a chapter that civilian courts left open, but broader counterintelligence operations continue. Nationwide, over 200 law enforcement officers with extremist ties are suspended or retire under investigation. Congress holds historic hearings on domestic extremism within police ranks. Bipartisan legislation mandates enhanced background checks, continuous monitoring for extremist affiliations, and conditional federal funding for departments meeting accountability standards. State legislatures adopt police reform measures including civilian oversight boards and mandatory anti-bias training. Federal grant support programs bridging communities and law enforcement to rebuild trust. Anthony Coleman, now permanently disabled with one lung at 60% capacity and lingering nerve damage, emerges from Walter Reed a hero. He receives the Medal of Honor at a private White House ceremony for courage under literal and figurative fire, protecting our nation from threats, foreign and domestic. He accepts a presidential appointment as special advisor to a joint task force tackling domestic extremism in critical infrastructure sectors. Though his days of field command are over, his strategic mind continues to serve. He uses a cane and undergoes daily therapy, determined that his ordeal will prevent future attacks. Sophia Coleman becomes head of the Civil Rights Division at DOJ, proclaiming at her Senate confirmation hearing, "Racism isn't simply a moral failing, it's a national security threat. Equal justice is essential to our democracy's stability and safety." Their children, now relocated to military housing with 24/7 protection, attend school under new protocols. The family endures weekly trauma counseling but embraces their roles as symbols of resilience and reform. What began as a routine traffic stop and brutally racist shooting by one officer revealed a vast conspiracy exploiting America's racial divides and extremist networks to threaten national security. The coordinated attempt to eliminate a military intelligence officer uncovered infiltration in 17 jurisdictions and foreign involvement. Anthony and Sophia's sacrifice spurred unprecedented reforms: the integration of civil rights enforcement with counterterrorism, mandatory extremist screening and law enforcement hiring, continuous monitoring of at-risk officers, and robust whistleblower protections. Their story stands as a testament. When bias infiltrates institutions meant to protect all citizens, it creates vulnerabilities foreign adversaries can exploit. True patriotism demands confronting our failures honestly and working toward equitable justice, ensuring that our security rests on both civil rights and national defense. This story teaches us that unchecked authority can become a weapon, and that courage to challenge wrongdoing can save lives and unmask conspiracies. Its message is that justice cannot be postponed, and every individual has a duty to speak out when they witness abuse. What do you think? Do you believe that rank or service should never shield someone from accountability? Have you ever felt powerless when confronting injustice? How far would you go to protect a loved one in a similarly dire situation? Please share your personal perspective. Does this narrative change how you view law enforcement accountability and civil rights protections? What steps would you take if you found yourself at the center of such a scandal? My own view. I firmly believe that collective action is our greatest safeguard. When we refuse to stay silent, when we ask hard questions, gather evidence, and demand transparency, the system is forced to defend its integrity. I also trust in the power of technology and grassroots organizing. Secure recording tools, encrypted reporting channels, and community coalitions can empower ordinary people to challenge abuses safely. Ultimately, I hope each reader will ask, if this happened in my neighborhood, what would I do? And then act on that answer. Because only when individuals stand up together does justice become more than an ideal, it becomes reality. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional. All characters and events are creations of the author and are not intended to reference or criticize any real person. It is designed to raise awareness of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating one another with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose all forms of violence, prejudice, and injustice. Please consider this before viewing.